Now, when it comes to Kendrick Lamar, today we're diving into something that almost feels illegal, ranking one of the greatest discographies hip-hop has ever seen. Yes, we're going through every Kendrick Lamar album from worst to best, if you can even call any of these worst, because with Kendrick, unlike most rappers, the man has built a catalog so intentional, so precise, and so high quality that ranking it practically feels like choosing between oxygen and water. Every one of his mainline albums could be argued as his best. Every one could also be argued as one of the greatest rap albums of all time. That's how insane his body of work is. So before we go any deeper, if Kendrick is in your top 10 rappers ever, hit that like button. And if you think he's higher than 10, don't just like. Tell me which Kendrick album sits at number 1 for you. Now, let's not waste another second. Let's rank every Kendrick Lamar studio album. Coming in at number 6, we have Kendrick Lamar's debut album, the one that lit the match, Section 80. And listen, if this is last place, that's not an insult. Compared to most rappers, this would be their masterpiece. Kendrick's worst album is still a title most artists would sell their souls for. Because when you revisit Section 80 years later, it makes perfect sense why this record still hits. It's like watching Michael Jordan in his rookie season. You see everything, the raw talent, the instincts, the spark that tells you he's not just going to be a star, but possibly the greatest the genre might ever witness. The storytelling alone hadn't been seen at that level since legends like Nas, Andre 3000, or Tupac. Tracks like Keisha's song proved Kendrick had that haunting narrative gift. Then the technical rapping, off the charts. One listened to Rigor Mortis and everybody understood immediately. This guy wasn't normal. Kendrick showed every trait the legends carried, and something we may not have fully grasped at the time, but absolutely do now, is how early he showcased the rare ability to make meaningful songs in an era drowning in shallow hits. While lyricism was fading industry-wide, he pushed through with anthems like High Power and ADHD, songs that became classics without Kendrick sacrificing a single piece of integrity. He stood against every trend and did it while carrying lyrical tools that only artists like Tupac, Nas, Andre 3000, Eminem, and a select few ever possessed. So for being the perfect introduction to a rapper who might be the greatest of all time, and yes, we're going to talk about that later, Section 80 may sit last, but it's still one of the strongest debuts hip-hop has ever seen. Now at number 5, we've got Kendrick's biggest commercial monster, the one that sold over 600,000 copies first week. Damn! These next 5 albums, pure classics, every single one. Damn isn't just one of the great rap albums ever made, it belongs in every serious all-time list. And honestly, if you compare Kendrick's 5th best album to Drake and J. Cole's best, Damn clears them, easily. Why? Because on every single level this album needed to hit, Kendrick executed with absolute mastery. As a storyteller, as a conceptual artist, as a hitmaker, as a superstar, he checked every box. And remember, this dropped in 2017, one of the most confusing and divided eras in hip-hop. A time when major rappers were releasing massive hits that said absolutely nothing. Lyricism weren't dominating. The industry was full of noise, superficiality, and rappers who, well, let's just say reading wasn't their strong suit. Then Kendrick pulled up with hits that were not only catchy, but era-defining. Humble became 20 times platinum, the best-selling rap song ever if he updates the certification. Then there were other juggernauts like DNA, Element, Loyalty, and Loved, hits everywhere. And yet between those chart smashers, Kendrick wove a deeply personal concept album. And when you reach Duckworth and realize the whole narrative plays in reverse, it adds another chilling layer. Even the album's intro with a cryptic opening story hooks you immediately. Damn is the proof that you can craft timeless art while dominating the mainstream without selling out even one value. And considering this is the highest selling first week album of the streaming era, excluding the gimmick stuffed projects from artists like Drake, it shows how unstoppable Kendrick was when sticking to his vision. That's why Damn is Kendrick's 5th best album, and still an undeniable classic. Now, stepping into the top 4, we have Kendrick's 2022 release, Mr. Morale and the Big Steckers. And let's be real, when this dropped, hip-hop fans were split straight down the middle. Some people flat out turned on Kendrick. As we saw during the beef, Drake and Joe Cole tried to label the album a flop, a brick, even tragic. But if you can say that with your chest, it reveals what type of rap fan you are. It means you value all the wrong things. You don't respect what hip-hop was built to express or what it evolved into. One of the most important forms of personal truth we've ever had. Because for anyone open enough to truly listen, Mr. Morale is one of the most rewarding albums to revisit, not just for Kendrick, but for anyone willing to sit with uncomfortable truths. Alongside Jay-Z's Port 44, it's one of the most important rap albums ever made when it comes to witnessing an artist mature, confront themselves, and expose every truth they've been burying. And before we even touch the music, let's acknowledge this. In a media world where everyone is obsessed with being fake, polished, curated, and perfect, or even you and I can see clearly, most people pretend they have no flaws. And if they're not doing that, well, then they're doing the Drake thing, openly embracing trash behavior and trying to make it look cool. Well, when you look at the landscape we're in today and the kind of role models people are stuck with, getting a body of work that pushes in the complete opposite direction of all that fakery and all those illusions we've been trapped inside, it's priceless. This album is a genuinely invaluable experience. And even if there are songs here that might not be your personal favorite, both their narrative value and their strongest moments make every second worth it. Because this project holds some of the most important and powerful songs Kendrick has ever made. Seriously, Mr. Morale is an album that keeps turning left every time you expect it to go right. And every time it shifts, it hits even harder. As Kendrick peels back more and more layers of his truth, you realize something. He came into this album to tell us he is not perfect, he is not anyone's savior, and he can barely save himself. Being the first rapper willing to say that out loud in a culture that's obsessed with pretending to be flawless only makes you respect him more. A track like United in Grief proves it instantly. In the grand lineup of Kendrick and Charles, it's easily the most shocking compared to where we last saw him 5 years earlier. After being the biggest superstar in rap, breaking records, winning trophies, doing everything at the absolute highest level, you expect him to return bigger, shinier, louder. Instead, he comes back as someone completely different. Someone who feels stripped down, drained, and brutally honest. And that warning he gave us that we should be afraid to see what comes next wasn't an exaggeration. Whether it's moments like Worldwide Steppers, where Kendrick sounds hyper-aware of his own thoughts and confesses the darkest corners of his truth without flinching, or Father Time, where in an upbeat instrumental and a gorgeous sample hook carried a story about why so many people, including Kendrick himself, struggle to express emotion because they've been taught to bottle everything up just to survive everyday life. Hearing a rapper speak on these things in such a thoughtful, emotional, and fearless way is something hip-hop rarely gets. Through exploring himself, Kendrick forces the listener to explore themselves too. And there is simply no other album in 50 years of hip-hop that does what Mr. Morale and the Big Steckers does. None. And that's exactly why Drake and Joe Cole tried to ignore all this depth and reduce the album to surface little jabs, which honestly exposed way more about them than about the album. But pretending Mr. Morale is only great because of what it represents, and not because of the music itself, it's just like yourself. Because musically, it's loaded. N95 is still blowing stadium roofs off. It's one of the best anthems Kendrick has ever dropped. Savior was a staple on the Big Steppers tour because it's classic Kendrick. High energy, layered meaning, and a razor-sharp commentary. Then there's Count Me Out, one of the most beautiful sounding songs he's ever made, period. Overall, Mr. Rock sounds incredible while delivering something priceless. And now that we've dug this feed, we have to mention the ending. The finale, Mother S. Over and Mirror, might be the greatest closing line to any album ever. Mother I Sober is arguably Kendrick's best lyrical performance ever recorded. And Mirror is the perfect emotional send-off. And with that line echoing, I choose me. I'm sorry. It's devastating, honest, liberating, everything at once.
When it all comes together, Mr. Morale stands as one of the most powerful pieces of art, not just of this century, but in hip-hop history. And before we move into number 3, I need to highlight this. What makes Kendrick's catalog so great is how every album serves a completely different purpose. Most rappers just make slightly upgraded versions of their previous work. Kendrick reinvents himself every time. That's why each project carries so much weight, so much meaning. Which brings us to number 3. And in my opinion, Kendrick Lamar's most significant contribution to the rap genre, GNX. Now, people have all kinds of opinions about this album, but when you look at what it stands for, it becomes clear. This is the ultimate hip-hop album. Not just for this era, but for any era. Because as Kendrick said in that Super Bowl interview with Ebro and Nadeska, he wanted to make an album that felt like the rap he grew up on. And he nailed it. With just 12 tracks showcasing pure MC excellence, Kendrick delivered a project that, if Section 80 is rookie Michael Jordan, GNX is prime Jordan leading a 72-win dynasty to its 6th championship. And since this is his 6th album, the comparison fits perfectly. This might be the most unique project in his catalog. Yes, there's plenty of depth and messaging here. Don't worry, we'll get to that. But compared to his other albums, GNX gives you something different. On songs like Hey Now, TV Off, and Squabble Up, you hear Kendrick rapping purely for sport, flexing the fact that he holds the crown so high, no one is close enough to touch it. By the end of this record, if you don't think Kendrick is the best MC alive, and not even in a debatable way, I don't know what album you listen to. Because GNX is confidence turned into sound. It's one of the most dominant, commanding statements a rapper has ever made. This is Kendrick's ultimate victory lap, crafted right after the biggest rap beef ever, when he won more convincingly than anyone has ever won a rap battle. And he poured that same knockout energy into this album. Because look at what GNX gives you. Every single ingredient you could ever want from a rap album. If you want hardcore, razor-sharp lyricism with lines that hit like freight trains, Whacked Out Murals and Man at the Garden are sitting right there. If you want massive hits, Squabble Up and TV Off stand toe-to-toe with any top-tier record from any era. And the Super Bowl halftime show is proof of that. If you want classic rap and R&B crossover vibes, you got Luther, a hit in any era, and Dodger Blue Hole in its own right beside it. And we're still not done. If you crave storytelling, the kind that reminds you why Kendrick is unmatched, then Gloria and The Heart Part 6 showed the full range of how far he can stretch narrative rap. If you want those West Coast bangers that really capture who Kendrick Lamar is and where he's from, tracks like Hey Thou, Peekaboo, and the self-titled record do exactly that. But if you want the peak of everything Kendrick is showcasing on GNX, the genius, the emotion, and the storytelling, I save the best for last. Reincarnated. For me, this is genuinely in the conversation for Kendrick's best song ever. From the sample to Kendrick's vocal tone, it's a clear homage to Tupac. But what people don't talk about enough is how GNX as an album is basically a massive love letter to hip-hop and music as a whole. If you're a rap fan who knows the history of the culture, the more you listen to these 12 tracks, the more you fall in love with the album. Because Kendrick is tipping his hat to at least one legend on almost every single song, many of whom never got the recognition they deserved. You see it immediately with Reincarnated, both for Tupac and for DMX, whose influence Kendrick openly highlighted on tour. The song is structured like DMX's iconic Damien, one of rap's greatest storytelling tracks ever. Then you move to Man at the Garden, a tribute to Nas and One Mic, which Kendrick has praised for years. Gloria honors both hip-hop and Common's I Used to Love, HRD. Luther pays homage to Luther Vandross, an artist that, unbelievably, never had a #1 hit as a lead artist. The fact that this track hit a #1 makes it even more powerful when you know his legacy. Even Squabble Up shines a light on the often forgotten freestyle club music scene, especially pioneer Debbie Deb, a genre that never broke into the mainstream but now sits on top of the charts because of Kendrick. TV Off is a tribute to Biggie. The Heart Part 6 puts a spotlight back on Kendrick's TDE brothers, Schoolboy Q, J-Rock, and Ab-Soul. When you look at the bigger picture, GNX is a musical spectacle that honors the past while pushing hip-hop forward. People saying the album has no meaning are blind to the fact that Kendrick is literally giving flowers to legends who never got their proper shine. GNX proves that when rap is operating at its highest level, it becomes the most culturally relevant art form in the world. And for Kendrick to deliver an album that feels like a victory lap while still being this deep and this intentional, GNX deserves to be top 3 and honestly top 10 all time. Good Kid, MAAD City, number 2. Choosing between the top 2 is nearly impossible, but at number 2 we have Good Kid, MAAD City, Kendrick's second album. If Illmatic defined the 90s and 2000s, Good Kid, MAAD City defines the 2010s and 2020s. The story Kendrick tells here is so detailed, so immersive, and so emotional that even Drake's biggest fans admit it's undeniably phenomenal. From the voicemails, to the narration, to the beat switches, to the chaos and beauty of the central story, this album pulls you directly into Kendrick's life in a way few rap albums or even films can match. And then there's Sing About Me, Dying of Thirst, a 12-minute emotional masterpiece that brings you to places you didn't know music could take you. Good Kid, MAAD City isn't just an album, it's an experience. And it's arguably the greatest rap album ever made. But the number 1 Kendrick Lamar album, and for many, the greatest rap album ever made, is To Pimp a Butterfly. This record takes everything hip-hop was meant to be and executes it at the highest possible level. It's a jazz-infused sonic masterpiece shaped by geniuses like Thundercat, Terrace Martin, Robert Glass, Pharrell, the Isley Brothers, and more. Musically, politically, spiritually, emotionally, this album is unmatched. From Wesley's Theory, which is one of the best rap intros ever, to Free Free, which is arguably the greatest interlude ever, to How Much a Dollar Cost, which is one of the best storytelling songs in music history, to You, which is one of the rawest emotional rap performances ever, to Mortal Man, one of the best outros ever. TPAB is an album that changes the way you think about music, art, and even yourself. The poem that builds throughout the album, the themes of self-discovery, the cultural revelations, and finally the conversation with Tupac, all of this brings hip-hop's past and future together in a way no album has ever achieved. This album didn't just elevate Kendrick, it gave him the unwanted savior title from fans because the music was that powerful. To Pimp a Butterfly isn't just Kendrick's best album, it might simply be the greatest album ever created. Final thoughts. Kendrick Lamar's catalog is like a Michael Jordan career run. 5 out of 6 albums are undisputed classics. Every project enhances the others. Whether he's making hits or crafting deep concept albums, the work complements itself. No other rapper's discography is this purposeful, this diverse, and this consistently genius. So now the question is simple. Is Kendrick Lamar the greatest rapper of all time? Tell me your ranking in the comments, and if you want the breakdown on the new album his team is teasing, check the suggested video.